I'll make up a topic. We're going to talk about puppies.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 14 of Random Encounter, the RPG fan podcast. Getting close to the holidays here. It's nice and cold outside. This is what happens when I try to do an intro off the top of my head. Why don't we just directly introduce everybody who is on the show right now? So, we have the newsman.
Hey, I'm Zack, super flat on the boards.
And then we have the man with many titles.
I'm in Las Vegas right now. It's not cold. It's like 65 outside.
God, I hate you.
Oh, man.
You going to tell people your name, or are you just going to go?
I'm John McCarroll. I am, let's go with
Las Vegas correspondent.
Okay.
There we go. And back by popular demand?
I don't think anybody really demanded it, but I'm Bryan Grosnick. I'm Banestar on the boards, and it's really cold in Connecticut, so I hate John.
Oh, God. Yeah, I'm having a hard time being back in the northern states, as it were. It's very cold. So we got games, as usual, to talk about. Brian's brought a list of games. We have a lot of 999 to talk about. It seems that John's recommendation sent Zach and I, going out, Zach and me going out to pick it up. And then we got a little discussion on what we look for in handheld games, and then a short news segment about all the stuff that's coming out in Japan that you will probably never play. So, Brian, go for it.
I guess the biggest game that I've been playing recently is an iOS game. No surprise to anyone who's seen any of the stuff I've reviewed recently. But it was an iOS game called The War of Eustrath, which originally was for the iPad and then got ported over to the iPhone. And I believe it was originally a computer strategy RPG called The War for Eustrath with like 8 S's. Yeah. Anyway, it's a really good game. It's a kind of simple strategy RPG. The system for battle is really elegant. It's not just the rock, paper, scissors type. You have a couple of different abilities. I guess when you start talking about it, it's a giant robot strategy RPG. So you have giant robots, and they have elemental affinities, and there's a war, and you fight other giant robots. And the plot isn't really what's driving this game. It's some good strategy RPG kind of gameplay. And like I was saying, the battle system is pretty cool. It's you've got certain abilities that you can use, and the abilities balance each other out. Like you can use the evade ability to get away from attacks. You can use an aim ability to negate people's evade abilities. And then you have like strengthening, defending, and then plenty of different types of attacks and counter ability, which negates abilities. And it's just a really fun little iPhone strategy RPG, which is cool because the iPhone doesn't have a lot of strategy RPGs.
This is reminding me, not to cut you off, but this is reminding me of Xenogears. Is there at any point a small pink furry object crucified?
No.
Damn.
Unfortunately.
Ah.
But yeah, it's kind of like Xenogears, yeah.
You said it's a strategy RPG?
Yeah, it's a grid-based strategy RPG.
Have you played any of the front mission games? Does it remind you those at all?
I have not played any of the front mission games.
What?
Jerk. I've played so many strategy RPGs, and I've never played a front mission game.
Well, the only one I played was Front Mission 3, but I remember loving that game just to death. I played it through like 4 times.
Yeah,
it's worth picking up. It's coming out.
I think I will get that.
Definitely.
But yeah, this is kind of, it's more of like Xenogears kind of in graphical style. There's a lot of like really colorful designs for the giant robots, which are called gears. So it's not like they actually tried really hard to differentiate. But the plot's completely different. It's just like a regular military fight, not anything world-shattering, world-breaking like the Xenogears plot or anything. But it's a fun game. There's a lot of different customization of your party. You get a lot of different characters based on your actions in the game. You actually, make decisions that, allow you to recruit certain characters or not recruit certain characters. So that's kind of cool. The difficulty level is pretty easy at the beginning, but it gets harder as it goes on. On my first playthrough of the game, there were about 37, 38 battles, and battles aren't terribly long. So it makes for a good iPhone game. And it's a lot of fun. It's one of the better iPhone RPGs that I've played before, and it's easily one of the best strategy RPGs because there's basically only like 3 of them, I think.
Interesting. I mean, it seems like the iPhone platform, or what is it, iOS, ISO, whatever. iOS, they just seem to be turning games out left and right. And if I was Nintendo, I'd already be a little nervous about that when you're going to release the 3DS at some point.
Now, here's the thing. I respect the Apple platform for what it is. I don't think it's in its current form ever going to be a legitimate gaming platform. I think that is great for casual games, and I think that kind of kids who get let me start over. I think that it's great for the casual gamer. I think that while there are games there for the hardcore gamer, it's not going to become a hardcore gaming, platform.
I mean, I think one of the big problems is that it doesn't have the infrastructure support that like something like the Xbox Live or PSN or even just like having games on your PC has. Like, I've had to reformat my iPhone a couple of times because I was either playing around with like developer firmware and stuff, and like I've lost game saves completely. And so like if I was going through Chaos Rings, for example, which is a fairly large game, I've sunk probably a good like 8 to 10 hours in that right now. If I lost all that progress, I don't know if I would feel super great about that. And like Apple is kind of trying to work on that with the Game Center stuff and kind of getting that sort of leaderboard friends based structure that like they have with Xbox Live and PSN. But at the same time, it's almost going to need like a revamping of sorts to figure out what they do in regards to DRM and game saves and DLC and how all of that is managed properly.
Well, I was just going to say, I think there's something that to be said for that. But one of the cool things about the iOS platform is like what I've experienced recently with Ash, which I talked about a couple of podcasts ago, where there are minor bugs in the game, and the developers turned around and patched those bugs in no time at all, which is really, really good. And like even just not bugs, but people wanted a D-pad in that game. So they took 2 weeks and they put a D-pad in the game. And that being able to turn things over, I mean, yeah, you can get that sometimes on PC games, but for a handheld, I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a market that is definitely starting to grow, and give it some time, and it may turn into something fantastic. I mean, there's always been the rumors about Apple rather, going into the console market, but I don't see why if they're making a good amount of money.
They've already tried to be in the console market.
Which was
Pippin.
The what?
The Apple Pippin.
Wow, you are showing your age there, my friend. You are showing your age.
No, it's honestly the console's not that old. It came out in '95.
Really? Wow,
yeah.
I've never even heard about it. I'm going to have to wiki that later. Okay, well, but I just think that the iOS operating, it could be a place of very interesting games, and we're going to talk a little bit about that later on in the show about handheld games and what we're looking for them. Yeah. Okay, moving on. Brian, any other games to talk about?
Actually, kind of on that same note, another game that I was playing recently that was also really good is it's called The Scarlett Adventures Episode 1, Scarlett and the Spark of Life, and it's a graphic adventure game. And that is a format that lends itself really well to the iPhone and iPad, I think. This game is made by an independent developer called Launching Pad Games. It's their first offering. It's very, very much influenced by the LucasArts Telltale style of graphic adventure games. Point and click, use items in your inventory, jokes, lots of jokes, especially B jokes. It's a really heavy B jokes, like about bees. There's some really pretty good bee jokes in it, but I'll leave the players to find them. But it's as far as the plot goes, you pick up the game in media res with Scarlett, who's a princess who carries a crowbar, and she's being kidnapped. And then you have to free her from her kidnappers and then solve some puzzles so that she can go and do other stuff. It's a short game. It's a fun game. For a small developer, it is pretty polished. Doesn't have a whole lot of content. The puzzles are a little easy. But other than that, it's a really nice first offering for Launching Pad games. And it definitely can go somewhere. It's the first episode of, I believe it's 4 planned episodes of the adventure. So it was a really good experience. And I really like graphic adventures on the iPhone. Well, I played on an iPhone. But it being point and click, being able to use a touchscreen is pretty awesome.
Definitely. I mean, I think that's definitely an area that I've never played before. That's a type of game that I never played before. And it's something that I want to become more versed in. I definitely want to start playing those kind of games. Could I say definitely more? I want to start playing different types of games, and I think that the graphic novel or digital novel is something that I want to get into more.
Well, I mean, this is a great starter game because, again, the puzzles are not tough. It's very straightforward, easy to look at. The graphical style is really clean. It's a little kind of Ren and Stimpy in the graphics at times. They have these really ugly horses called Pocalos, and they kind of look like they were pulled out of like old Nickelodeon commercials.
No, sir, I don't like it.
Exactly.
There you go.
No, it's a good game. It's a good fit for the system. It's not very expensive. I believe it was $3, something like that, which is great. That's one of the things, again, about the iOS platform that's awesome is you can get games like Shining Force for $1, and you can get these fun, little games from new developers for like under $5, which is great.
Cool. Anything else? You got this long list of games. You're gonna keep inundating us with it?
Just quick hits. I'm doing Shining Force right now, which is a direct port of the 1993 Sega Genesis air quotation marks classic. So far, it's $1, and I still regret buying it for the iOS because the D-pad that they put on the game is awful. I can't make my character go anywhere I want him to go. So initial reaction is stay away from that. And I just started playing ZHP for PSP, which is a fun roguelike. I think everybody should play it, especially if you like the NIS America games or if you like dying over and over again in a game.
Sweet. Demon Soul says hi.
Not even like in a Demon Souls, this game's really tough way, but you actually get benefits from dying in the game, which is kind of weird and not at all like most roguelikes I've played before. But it's a fun game. It's definitely it's one of those games I feel like I can pick up and play and then put back down and then mess around with something else for a while. So that's cool.
Cool. All right, so are we ready to discuss 999, our adventures with? Okay, let me see if I can get it straight. 9. Crap, what's the first word?
Hours?
9 hours, 9 persons, 9 doors?
I think so.
Yeah, I always thought it was 9 hours, 9 people, 9 rooms. I don't know why, but maybe that just made more sense to me. So, have we all finished it? I know Bryan, it doesn't seem like Bryan's played it, but has every one of us gotten an ending?
I have been told that I am apparently right on the heels of the worst possible ending.
Yeah, you're about ready to get the ending that I got. You're like right there, which is, and again, we're not going to spoil the game for anybody. We're not going to. Just the ending is very, very depressing.
Well, there's 6 different endings.
Yes,
and so I think just quickly, I feel like we should probably go over what the game is for the people who didn't listen last week or who don't know what it is.
So what the game is, and John described it very well last week. We talked about it briefly. It's a digital novel with puzzle-solving elements, kind of point-and-click style adventures. You're playing a character named Junpei who wakes up on a ship in a room that's quickly filling with water. You have to solve a puzzle to get out, which, on a side note, that first puzzle really ticked me off because the game... I don't feel like the game was doing a good job of explaining to you the kind of thought process that you had to go through to solve the puzzles. Like, Afterward, I felt like an idiot, but it was like that first puzzle is the game's teaching you the game's language and logic. So the first puzzle is kind of a little obnoxious if you've never played these kind of point-and-click style games before.
Well, I actually think it did that very well, and I think that it did it almost... imagine that you're this guy, you wake up and you're disoriented and you have no idea what's going on. And yeah, it's teaching you. One thing I did find annoying is just how many times it would do instruction prompts.
Oh, God. That was driving me nuts, but what really ticked me off was I thought I had the puzzle worked out, and I didn't because I was missing one more item in the room, and I had checked everywhere except one specific spot. Now, after that, I took the knowledge of that puzzle, and I said, okay, now I can apply that to every puzzle in the game. And afterward, I didn't have any problem because that initial puzzle does send you into you're going to click on every item in the room because something might be important. So after you get out of the room, you meet 8 other survivors on this ship. You find out that you're in this kind of Saw-esque trapped ship, and you have to get out of it. Only so many people can go into each numbered door. There's a lot of puzzle-solving elements here and there. Lots and lots of narrative. If you're not somebody who likes to read, you should avoid this game at all cost. But this is my first ever digital novel, and so I was just immediately absorbed into this game. The writing, the story, the puzzles, everything just ripped me, or just made me dive into this world, and I played it the whole way through in one night and a little bit the next morning. And I got my first ending, which, again, very, very depressing. So
I think the most apparent thing, and something that is perhaps undercounted these days in video games and especially in RPGs, is the quality of the writing.
Yes.
And I don't mean like that it's just like a good story or that it has a good plot twist every now and then, but like the actual writing. And a lot of it has to do with the way that it's presented. John mentioned last time that on the top screen you have what characters are actually saying. On the bottom screen you have a narrator of sorts. Mm-hmm. And so it reads a lot like a real novel, and it it plays it's almost as if there are stage directions, like Junpei walked across the screen, his head in his hand, and I think that really helps to draw the reader in, and it's capably written prose.
Yes. Yes.
It's certainly not Shakespeare, but it does a lot better than most other RPGs these days, especially, but most other games in general.
Yeah, I mean, it has a frickin' Dark Knight joke in it. I mean, now obviously that was put in there through translation. I doubt it was in the original Japanese, but there is a Dark Knight joke in there. And Zach's 100% right. The way the prose combined with the story, it really is a paranoia story, and little things are brought up here and there, and characters will make suggestions, and the game doesn't beat you over the head. It does. The way it's written, though, will make you paranoid of almost every character at one point or another, which I found really, really cool because I love a good mystery. And what ends up happening a lot of times with mysteries is that I'm so absorbed in trying to solve the mystery that I can't enjoy it for what it is. Shutter Island is a very good example. It's a movie where, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I figured it out within about 15 minutes of the movie beginning. Now, it's pretty obvious what's going to happen, but 999 really doesn't do that. It kind of throws some things out there that you're not sure if they're important or not, and characters will say things that make you paranoid, and the narrator will say some things that make you paranoid, but never enough to push you in one direct direction. When my game ended, I was shocked. I was honestly shocked, and I'm not going to give anything away, but I don't know how you felt, Zach. Did you get the worst ending?
Well, yeah, so I've gotten 2 endings. Basically, out of the 6 endings, there's 1 true ending, and then there are 5, I guess not true endings. But basically, what Rob and I both got and what John is on course to get is the 6th ending, which is one of the worst endings, probably the worst ending.
I don't see how you could get much worse. I mean,
it's really depressing. We're not gonna say anything about it.
Maybe if they shot a puppy at the end of it, that would make it worse.
Mm-hmm.
But I really don't.
But the one thing is, having played through the game a full second time, and I actually got really close to finishing it a third time, but I forgot to plug in my DS, and so it erased my my progress. Is that you really, there are only so many big decisions in the game, but you really begin to see where one ending, like if you talk to a character and mention something or give a character a certain item, if you go into one room, you may be able to do that, and that will completely change the way your interactions in another room will end. So the third ending, for instance, is basically what happens is, if you go through a different door halfway through the game than you would to go on the true ending or second ending path, you don't get to talk to a certain character, and that interaction that you would have with that certain character, and I'm not going to spoil anything because it would become very obvious. If you don't have that interaction, that character thinks a lot less of you, which changes the way, completely changes the way, you interact with that character at the, on the next ending. And, so, I mean, I just thought, and it was kind of interesting because, I kind of was able to piece these things together, having gone through the game a second time, maybe if I had chosen that other door and was able to do that interaction, this wouldn't have happened. Mm-hmm. And so it's very logical like that. I really like it.
So you guys keep talking about multiple playthroughs. About how long is it to get through?
I think I must have finished it in under 3 hours, maybe.
Yeah. No, the game itself is pretty short. But the fact of the matter is, because your choices are different every given time, you're only playing about through, 20 or 30 minutes of identical content.
Mm. And the nice thing is that once you've beaten the game, they give you the option to fast forward through any text that you've gotten.
Yeah, that's
already.
A godsend.
So when you just hold down the right button or the right direction on the D-pad, and basically the beginning of the game until you get to your first choice of doors is the same every time. So basically you have a half a minute of text and intro stuff, and then you solve your first puzzle, which by now I've gotten it down to a science.
I wish you could skip the puzzles that you've already solved. That annoys me a little bit.
True. But basically, so I mean the one almost quip I'd have about having a fast forward feature as opposed to a straight up skip feature is that I have played through the beginning of that game 3 or 4 different times. And most now that I've gotten that puzzle down to an exact science, it's basically I'm just holding down the right button on the D-pad for 2 or 3 minutes until I get to choose the first door. But I mean, even then, I haven't explored. I'd say if I didn't run out of battery, I would have been about halfway through getting all of the content in the game. But I mean, even so, I'm really looking forward to going through it again. It had me hooked all of my Thanksgiving break. That's pretty much all I played.
So I want to go on to an aside. Am I the only person who really missed the feature in Chrono Cross where you could hold the trigger and the game was faster after you beat it?
Or you could slow it down if you wanted to watch something really, really cool.
Yeah. And I don't know why no other game has done that.
Just on a side there, I love Chrono Cross. I really do. I love that game. I know a lot of people take a giant dump on it all the time. I love that game. I do.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, and I do like that skip feature because that lets you get to certain places quicker. And as Zach was saying, the really, really important thing about the skip feature in 999 is you can't skip text that you've never read before. So you don't run this risk of, I'm going to fast forward and, oh, crap, I just missed a giant story revelation that I got on this playthrough. So the game is making sure that you're not missing anything. One question that I have for Zach, because he's played it more than I have. Certain dialogue and certain I guess it's certain dialogue that I have with characters, it doesn't really seem to be here or there. It just kind of seems like a bunch of people are just BSing. does everything have a purpose? Like at one point, there's a conversation about and I don't know if this is a spoiler or not, honestly, but there's a conversation about like an isotope that crystallizes.
Okay, so it depending on what doors you go through, you learn more about that, and it has something to do.
Okay,
like that. A lot of the stuff, like I don't want to get too far into it, but a lot of the stuff in the game that at first seems like BS, once you've gotten further into the game and learned more about that. And one thing that I want to get to in a second is how the non-true endings still are important. Everything has to do a little bit with that. And so what I was going to say is that on that sixth ending, the one that Rob and I had and the one that John is going to have, you learn information about the characters that you are with at the time that you won't learn, or perhaps you may in the true ending, but that you typically wouldn't learn in a standard playthrough.
But is that information important to solving anything in the true ending? Or is it just about like filling in the puzzle pieces and understanding the story?
I mean, on the one hand, it works really well to round out those two characters, because on the sixth ending, you're with two characters that I personally wasn't a huge fan of. But when I heard their stories and like learned a little bit more about them by going through, like those specific puzzle rooms and going with them, I was much more attached to their characters. But one thing that it does contribute to, and I'm not sure how much this is for all of the endings, but basically when you beat the game, they allow you to start with, quote, like memories of the past, which is basically any information that you've gotten from the last game, you kind of know. And so I'm not going to spoil how to get the true ending. I've read how to get it. I don't know what it is, but there's a certain ending that you have to get before you do the true end, like before you do a other ending. So you have to beat the game twice essentially to get the full true ending. And apparently,
I screwed. I don't want to cut myself. I don't want to cut you off, Zach, but I screwed myself because I have to get ending 4 to get the true ending, and I've cut myself off from ending 4 with my first decision in the game without even realizing it, and that really ticked me off.
But at the same time, when like if you're playing through the game multiple times, and like it is that first decision that you get, like you get to, like I haven't gone through door 5 at the beginning yet. The first two options you have in the game are door 4 and door 5. I've never gone through door 5 yet. I've gotten 2 different endings so far, and I certainly could have gotten a third. Like again, had my battery not died. I think that there are 4 endings that you can get by going through door 4, and then 2 that you can get by going through door, or maybe even I don't know what there's a lot of different options, and like getting to go through whatever puzzle rooms are in door 5 that aren't in door 4, I think is really interesting.
Yeah, I would make a suggestion to the listeners though. If you do pick this game up, don't read anything. Just go in and enjoy it, and then you can look up in FAQs, how to get the certain endings and if you want to get the most out of it. But really, it is a better experience if you're just thrown directly into it, because then your decisions you're making as if you were a character in this really effed up situation. And I mean, those are the decisions you're going to make.
And then the cool thing is that, like, unlike a game like Heavy Rain, where there are multiple endings, this one has like a true canon ending that you can get, and that you can see all of the different parts of this game coming together, like a bunch of different story elements. Like you can see everything working together from different angles to work towards this true ending. And so like the endings that you get that aren't, like that one ending are interesting, but at the same time they leave you wanting more. And like leave you like, oh yeah, I totally want to play through this game again to find out what actually happens to these characters and what what is the deal with that fancy isotope science thing and all of that business. So I heartily recommend picking this one up.
Yeah, I definitely do too. I talked last week, 2 weeks ago, how I was really like RPG fatigue. I just played way too many RPGs and I needed something new. And so what I ended up doing was I started playing Red Dead again. I had all that business with my PlayStation 3. I lost all my game saves, so I started playing Red Dead again, and that was a lot of fun. And then I picked this up, and it was just so different. It was so outside of my comfort zone, as a gamer, and I just burned straight through it in almost one night. And I really did enjoy it. And, I've made little gripes here and there. I really wish that you didn't have to do the puzzles that you already solved. Like, if there was just a solve again feature, I really wish that was in the game. But, what are you going to do?
At the same time, one thing for that, there's dialogue in certain puzzles that you can get that affect endings in the game.
Sure.
That's
true. That's true. But overall, definitely recommend it. If you're looking for something that is story-driven, narrative-driven. Again, it is very different from a lot of other games. This isn't something that we get very often in America. It's a digital novel with very little input from the player, except when it comes to puzzle solving. But there is a dump of information at the beginning of this game, like literally 40 minutes of not doing anything and just reading.
It's worth it. I mean,
sure.
It's totally worth it, yeah. The characters are really well written and well defined, and that's what I was saying before about not liking certain characters. I didn't like a lot of the characters at the beginning of the game, but as you kind of progress and get to know them through the various stories that you eventually elicit from them and all of that sort of stuff, you get a much more well-rounded picture of these characters, and I think that says a lot to what they were trying to achieve and what they were actually able to achieve with with this specific genre.
Yep. I'm definitely liking it. Are there any other digital novels that have been released in America that are worth playing?
Well, there's that one Lux Pain, but people don't really like that because the translation was poor. But John, I know you're a fan.
Yeah, I really like Lux Pain. There are lots of things to like about Lux Pain. You just have to get past the fact that, yes, this game has a horrible translation. And it's not I actually don't think it's the translation that's horrible. I think it's the editing in the game. I think it was really one of Ignition's first, we're going to take a buttload of text and translate it. They've done Arcrise since then. They've done a couple of other RPGs. But it was kind of their first attempt at a big translation, and it didn't turn out too well in that sense, but there is a whole lot to like about that game, and it's kind of weird science fiction-y, and that's what I like.
What system is that for?
That's for DS.
Also on the DS, yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Gotta love the DS. Mm-hmm.
And then there's also our editor Neil Chandran's one of his favorite games, Ever 17. Is for the PC. It's really hard to find a copy of that, but it's interestingly enough, the same author. The writer for Ever 17 is the same person as the writer for 999, so I guess you're getting kind of a similar sort of feeling there.
Cool. So now, if we're done talking about 999, what we have in terms of a topic is something that I've noticed with the DS. I picked one up over the summer, and what I've noticed is I enjoy playing very different kinds of games on the DS. I don't like the idea of playing something big and massive that I would just rather play on my TV with a controller and hands backed away. I find that I want to play very different kinds of experiences. So the games that I've really enjoyed on my DS are things like 999 or even Grand Theft Auto Chinatown Wars was something that was very skewed for the DS. There was lots and lots of things that could only work on the DS, and I enjoyed that sort of thing. But then a game like Dragon Quest IX, and I was a huge Dragon Quest VIII fan, I just found Dragon Quest IX to be like, okay, I know that there's features here, connectivity features that work very well in Japan when everybody's commuting, but for me, having a job that I don't commute to, I work at a freaking boarding school, so I live on campus and I go to work. I literally have a 2-minute walk to my building. I don't have any commute time, so when I come back home, it's kind of like, why would I sit down on my couch and play a game on my tiny little DS when I have my 50-inch brand new plasma TV that I could play, God of War 3 on, which I was doing before the podcast, and holy crap. I look for very different kinds of experiences when I'm playing on my DS, and I want to play something that's very different. I just wanted to ask you guys, do you feel the same way when it comes to handheld gaming? And I think this is the problem that Sony got into, where Sony said, okay, the PlayStation Portable is a mini PlayStation 2, and we're going to release God of War and Ratchet and Clank and Jak and Daxter, and we're going to release all these games.
But here's the thing about those, is that despite the fact that those are franchises that originated on home consoles, all of the handheld versions are very well tailored to bite-sized gameplay. Like,
Sure.
if you play the two Gods of War for PSP, Gods of War.
I like
don't-
Gods of War. I like that.
You'll realize that, you know what, these are similar enough to the home consoles versions that they'll appeal to mass market, but they really are tailored for the actual handheld. You know, there's only like 3 levels in the first in Chains of Olympus, but they're all well done. They're all incredibly epic for the PSP, and you know, they're games that work well for the handhelds. I mean, there are games that wouldn't work on a handheld. Like if you were to take the some of the modes from Gran Turismo, I'm on a Gran Turismo kick right now, Gran Turismo 5, and port them to the PSP version, it wouldn't work. I was really disappointed when the PSP version of Gran Turismo didn't have like a career mode.
Yeah.
But I couldn't imagine doing an endurance race on my PSP.
But here's the thing. Okay, it's cool that God of War is designed, you know, Chains of Olympus is designed to be on a handheld. It's cool that it's developed into bite-sized chunks. But why would I play that over God of War 3 or God of War 2? You know,
it's not necessarily playing it over. You know, it's okay. Say you've played God of War 1, 2, and 3, and you've got a PSP. Why not play it? It's a God of War that you can play on the turlet.
Okay, that's cool, but again, I think that the handheld market is not for somebody like me. I feel like the handhelds are developed for people who commute every day to work.
Video games?
No, they're developed for people who commute. I think that they're developed to be, or at least they should be developed. I've played a couple, you know, that I can't think off the top of my head that really weren't tailor-made for handhelds, you know, not having quick save options and whatnot. But, you know, that's what the experience is for. But I don't commute every day. I can come home and I have my computer and and I'm not bagging on handheld games. What I'm saying is that the prospect of playing a Legend of Zelda on DS or playing a God of War on PSP, it doesn't appeal to me because I'm sitting there going, I would rather sit back on my couch with a controller in hand and get the full experience rather than, you know, laying on my couch holding a handheld.
Well, here's something to keep in mind. I think that's important is that not everybody has your 50-inch plasma.
Sure. That's why I'm saying that that's why I don't look for those experiences. I'm not saying that it's wrong for people to have those experiences and to want that.
I think I'm sorry, I didn't mean to come across that way, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that for budget gamers, I think the handhelds are not just good, but they're like necessary.
Sure.
I mean, there's a whole different financial setup to trying to get started with a 360 or PS3 rather than buying, you know, a PSP bundle or a DS bundle and like 2 games for that. I mean, there's still a $100, $200 difference in that, and that's without even the television involved. And let alone if you get something like an iPhone, which is, you know, you can get for $250, you get the iPhone and you get like 25 games.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good point, and I can see that if you're looking for budget gaming, that's a great thing. But I do think that this is just a personal taste thing, and I'm not saying that, you know, God of War or, okay, maybe I'm saying that a game like Assassin's Creed shouldn't have been brought out on a handheld, but that's neither here nor there. I'm not saying that those games shouldn't exist on the handhelds. What I'm saying is that those aren't the experiences that I'm looking for on the handhelds. But I want to play something different.
I think that the best part is that because handheld games are so less expensive to develop than home console games, that there's a medium there.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me. You have those experiences. Say somebody wants to play God of War, Ratchet and Clank, Gran Turismo, whatever, on their PSP. They have that choice. But also on the PSP, you have stuff like Luminous. Mm-hmm. And these games that are tailor-built for these platforms that you see Luminous on the home consoles now because it was so good on the PSP. But, you know, and then you look at stuff like 999, Phoenix Wright on the DS. These games that were tailor-made for these platforms, and they work well, and the developers could go out on a limb and say, okay, I'm going to do this strange game that we couldn't do on a home console because we don't have $4 million to put into development.
Sure. And I think that I wouldn't even want to play a game like 999 or Ace Attorney on my TV. You know what I mean? There would be no need because these aren't, giant, high definition, high production value games. Now, that's also because of the necessity of building it on the platform. But playing it on a handheld is perfectly fine. It's perfectly suited. I also find the handheld to be, if this makes sense, a little bit more intimate in terms of my connection between what's going on. At least it can be. I can sometimes feel disconnected from the action that's going on screen by being, 12 feet away from my TV. It's just that I noticed that the games that I was picking up for DS originally, take, for example, Castlevania Order of Ecclesia. That was a great game, and I think it suited fairly well to the handheld. But I could have just as easily played that, on a TV. I've played Symphony of the Night, God knows how many times. And I could easily have played that on a TV. I don't feel like it used the fact that it was on a handheld in any other way. But if the developer said, look, I only have this much money, we're going to develop it for this system rather than make this huge HD Order of Ecclesia game, then I totally understand. But I guess I'm just looking for very different kinds of experiences on a handheld. I wouldn't want to play Dragon Age 2 on a handheld. I certainly wouldn't want to play Mass Effect on a handheld,
So I want to play Mass Effect on a PSP.
You'd want to play Mass Effect on a PSP? Really? You'd basically want it to look like Siphon Filter?
No, thinking about that, Mass Effect is the kind of game that works well enough that I think it would work well on the PSP.
Don't give EA any ideas. I'm gonna go put that down on parchment. I'm gonna make sure they can't make that. So, Zach, where do you stand on this whole thing? You've been quiet.
I think that we've been kind of dancing around what we've really been trying to talk about is how awesome these kind of quirky experiences can get. We just talked about 999, which is for pretty much one of my favorite games of the year so far. One of the most outstanding experiences I've had over any console. And it's something that I'm really kind of excited that they were that it came over, that it was localized, and that it was that I was able to play it. And you have stuff like that. You have stuff like Nights in the Nightmare, which I was talking about last week. I haven't had a chance to play much more of that, and I was saying that I was really confused, but at the same time I was also having this weird sort of visceral intellectual fun that I don't really get with a lot of games. Having to kind of play a bullet hell shooter and a strategy RPG at the same time is a weird concept, and I'm really glad that someone has brought that to someone has created that for my gaming enjoyment. And so on the one hand, yeah, sure, I'm not very likely to sit down with God of War or some other big budget game that I just don't have time to play when I want to play 15 other things on my Xbox or PS3 or PC, whatever. At the same time, you get a lot of it's the quality of these new experiences that I'm really excited to see what happens with the 3DS. If only because it's just going to open up. Maybe it'll open up a whole bunch of new opportunities. Maybe it'll be like the DS was in its infancy, and it'll take a long time for developers to really wrap their minds around what a 3D game can be.
As opposed to just Brain Age 3D.
We're going to get a lot of that at first.
All I want is another chance to play Metal Gear Solid 3. That's all I want.
See,
hey, I'm not opposed.
I'm not opposed to that either.
That's the worst trap, I think, of the handhelds, is that so much of them now are just ports, especially for RPGs. It seems like every other thing that comes out for handheld, and don't get me wrong, I'm really glad we get ports, but I would really like to see more new IP stuff, like Nights in the Nightmare or like 999, as opposed to what seems to be an endless parade of ports of games that we already have, like Manakemia 2 or stuff like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing a Persona game just made for a handheld. I actually do think that series works a little bit in terms of a handheld market. I mean, I know that they've released Persona 3, and I think they're going to do Innocent Sin now for PSP. But I wouldn't mind seeing that franchise put on a handheld. I know I said in an earlier podcast that I don't want it because that means I have to go out and buy it. But I wouldn't mind, because I do think that series can work on a handheld, because you save very often. There can be long stretches of dialogue, but all they need to do is just slap in the brilliant thing about 999, which is you can save any time. That is like a frickin' godsend. You know, you got somebody knocking on your door or something, you can just boom, save right there. You never have any downtime, and I love that.
But they have experimented with not necessarily Persona, but Shin Megami Tensei games on the handhelds. You look at Strange Journey and at what's the other one?
Devil Survivor.
Devil Survivor seemed to be more tailor-made for a handheld platform, but you know, it's proven that Atlas is looking at the handhelds for Shin Megami Tensei games.
Yeah, and I would definitely be interested in playing more of them. I know I didn't have a great experience with Strange Journey, but you know, I would be interested in playing more stuff. So,
for me, I felt that both Devil Survivor and Strange Journey didn't even seem to be like, I would have preferred to have played both those games on a console rather than a handheld. There was nothing handheld like centric about them for me. They have those, you know, in-depth, involved stories that you don't really. I mean, a lot of story issues that come up in handhelds are if you take a break from your handheld for, like, you know, if you only play every 15 minutes, if you only play for a half an hour, I feel you can kind of lose something for some of those story-specific games. I felt that way a little bit for Persona 3 Portable, too. I felt like I got a better experience out of it when I was playing the PS2 version.
Well, I also think that console gaming lends itself to more of a marathon session. I know that I was trying as quickly as I could to burn through Dragon Quest IX, and I just started to like, my eyes were getting crossed. I was very uncomfortable, you know, constantly having to shift in my seat. And then I remember back to playing, you know, hours and hours of Persona 3, Persona 4, and even Dragon Quest 8. And I just think that console gaming lends itself to more of a marathon session, and that's just for me. So with the portables, it is kind of like you can take it in these bite-sized chunks. And I agree with Bryan. That can kind of cut up your game a little bit, and that can cut up the experience at times. So
no, I hear you. Yeah. And and then the whole cutting up your story thing is true if you take a break from anything, you know.
Try jumping back into Red Dead Redemption after like not playing that game for a month. You're sitting there going, what the hell's going on? Why am I in Mexico? Why are people dying?
I would have had a lot different experience the first time I played through Xenogears if I didn't play it in like giant 5-hour chunks after school all day, every day in high school.
Oh, did I mention in last week's podcast that Brotherhood even emulates Xenogears more in story now? Just in the fact that, like, the last hour of Assassin's Creed Brotherhood is basically, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then the game ends. Which sounds suspiciously like the second disc of Xenogears. We ran out of money halfway through development of this game. So, I don't know. Just an interesting little factoid. So, I think we're done with the handheld discussion. So, Zach, why don't you round us out with the news, my friend?
So, for news this week, we have first on the list, Deus Ex Human Revolution gets you some pre-order bonuses and a special edition, the augmented edition.
A lot of forums were very crazy about this.
In a good way or in a bad way? Like,
in a bad way. People are like, because the GameStop pre-order is an additional mission in the game that features a character from the first Deus Ex.
Oh boy.
And so people were like, it's the internet. And they're also upset. The GameStop pre-order also gives people an unlocking tool. It's a one-use throwaway, but people are still, it was like internet on fire. How could you do this? I want to buy this from X, Y, or Z outlet.
Why do people care? Honestly, I'm just looking forward to the game. I am kind of tired of these special editions. I I don't think it needs one. I mean, maybe just for the art design, but why not just incorporate that into the game? Like, have an artwork manual in the game. I remember when special editions used to mean something, and I still think Atlas does a really good job with their special editions, but, why do you need a special edition for, like, Castlevania Lords of Shadow? Or
every game needs a bust of the main character that comes along.
Okay, that's true. That's true. Okay, thank you, Witcher. So...
But so basically, yeah. So the special edition is going to have a 40-page art book, a motion graphic novel, and a bonus disc.
A bonus disc of stuff that you
making of, game trailers, animated storyboard. So I mean, on the one hand, it does kind of play to what you're saying, Rob, is that like this special disc, the special edition, like unless you're in love with the game, really has like very very little appeal.
I've gotten burned like that. I bought the Civ 5 box special edition.
So yeah, I don't really care about behind-the-scenes stuff unless it impacts or it shows us something that went on in actual development. I remember God of War 3 did this really cool thing in the documentary about it where they didn't skirt the issue that Cory Barlog, the director of God of War 2, left midway through development of God of War 3 or early on in the development. They came right out and said, yeah, this was difficult. It was something that we had to overcome. That's the kind of behind-the-scenes stuff that I like. I don't like it when they sit there and just kind of say, oh, yeah, our art assets are amazing, and these are the guys that we got to do the voices. So if it's a behind-the-scenes thing for a video game, I want it to mean something.
Though I do like when they release like the voice actor stuff, like for Mass Effect, all the interviews with Seth Green that they released just on like Xbox Live. I thought those were great. I wouldn't want to pay for those, but
yeah. So I guess we're all in agreement. We don't really. What do we think is going to happen with Human Revolution? Is it going to come out and disappoint, or is it going to be good?
I mean, only time will tell. I feel like it looks pretty.
It looks pretty. It does look pretty, but
Eidos Montreal. I have faith in them. What?
What else have they made? Are they the original development studio behind Deus Ex?
No, they've inherited like the old Ion Storm, so they're also working on Thief 4.
Oh yeah, the present day Thief, or that's what it's rumored to be, present day Thief.
I don't know much about it, but it is, these are the guys who inherited the old Ion Storm stuff. You know what? Here's the thing. Square Eidos, whatever you want to call them now, they actually do have a pretty decent setup, and they make quality games, and I don't think they would hand a property like Deus Ex, and they are pimping this game. Like, I get press releases on a fairly regular basis, and a company like Square, they have an internal team and they have a couple of external teams. And usually it's split up. It's like, okay, I know I can expect to get MMO news from this source and non-RPG news from this source and all that sort of thing. I get Deus Ex news from all of them. So you know that Square is really gung-ho about making sure that this is going to be a good game, or at least it's going to be promoted well.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of a little bit more... I honestly don't know what to think of it. It looks interesting. We still don't have a firm release date on it, though. Correct?
I think it's March.
March or February, but they have not put a firm release date on it. And then we get into the whole issue of, do I want to buy it on PC? Do I want to buy it on console? And I'm really getting tired of that. I don't know. We'll see. I think it'll be interesting at least. So, Zach, continue with the news.
Next up, we have a couple of Japanese release dates for you.
Project Arc?
No.
Aww.
White Knight Chronicles on the PSP, which is episode portable Dogma Wars, is coming February 3rd.
You remember when we were all excited about White Knight Chronicles?
Oh, the days.
Do you guys remember that? Like, the first video for that game, we're like, oh my god, it's amazing. And then it came out.
And it's like, wow, I could play this, and when it was called Final Fantasy 12.
Ouch. Zing.
But yeah, so that's coming out February in Japan. Persona 2 Innocent Sin PSP is coming out in March in Japan. And so they're actually doing something interesting with it. They're going over They're adding a lot of new music. The old music will be in the game as well for those of you who care. There's going to be a lot of new cut-in battle animations, new icons, mini map, a more streamlined battle interface. And one of the big things, and I think Rob, you might like this, is that they're adding 3 difficulty modes that you can switch between.
What are you implying, Zach?
On the fly. Hey, I don't know.
What are you implying?
I'm just saying it's a Shin Megami Tensei game, you know?
I'm just saying I played through Demon Souls and didn't find it hard. So all you haters out there that are like, oh, Steinman doesn't know how to play video games, I didn't find Demon Souls hard.
But yeah, so they're adding in. They have these 3 different difficulty settings, but also they're throwing in. They've rebalanced the game. So if if you're not a fan of the instant kill, like death attacks and the terrible, the really powerful status effects and stuff, you have an option to kind of tweak that to your liking. So. So that's coming out March 3rd in Japan, and hopefully in the near future we'll have, an announcement for an American release. Then we have Ghost Trick Phantom Detective.
Woohoo!
If you're interested in that game, there is a playable demo.
Oh.
A flash demo on the internets. If you check out the Capcom Unity blog, you can find the link from our news story on the site. You just check that link out, and it plays kind of like there was a playable demo for 999 as well. Now that I think about it.
Oh, cool.
So it's kind of it works well with the the point and click adventure gamey sort of nature. So check that out if you're interested. And then finally, the really big news is the partnership between Image Epoch and Nice America. So, John, do you know about this? Do you know a lot about this? Because I'm kind of not super sure. I know that Image is it Image Epoch?
Yeah, Image Epoch or whatever you want to call them. They announced, I don't remember if it was 6 or if it was 8 kind of new JRPGs as the JRPG revolution, or I don't remember how they termed it, but Image Epoch was like, you know what, the JRPG is it's where is it gone? Everything's gone to the Western, and we are going to make all of these brand new JRPGs, and they're going to be great. And then there was an interview with a Japanese outlet, I forget which one, and they said, oh yeah, we're going to be working with NIS America. And this was before anything was announced. But NIS is going to be tasking on bringing over all of these JRPGs over the next 3 years.
Interesting.
So do we see this as a full revival of the JRPG genre?
No.
Probably.
Well,
but they look fun.
Yeah, I mean,
no one's going to buy them.
I don't think that's true.
I think it is.
Here's the thing: they're DS and PSP titles. Well, there are some of them are DS and PSP. Some of them are.
I know Chevalier Saga Tactics was supposed to be a PS3 download and a PC game.
I mean, I think
they're doing some other things other than just the handhelds.
I think they'll sell decently in Japan, and they'll probably sell out of their print run in America. But I think Americans, we've really the American shift in RPG toward the Western RPG is kind of huge. And I'm not saying that as it's a good thing. I'm saying that the shift has happened.
I think there is a significant difference between a blockbuster title and what these are supposed to be.
Okay,
I don't think anyone's expecting this to be Fallout New Vegas, selling 2 million copies in a week or whatever it was.
People sure do like expansion packs. Just saying, people really seem to like them.
But you take a company like NIS America or Axis or any of these localization companies, and they're working on, teams of 10 on localizing any given title. And you don't need to have a title sell 2 million copies when, for $9.99, probably they're aiming to sell less than 100,000 copies if if my estimates are correct.
Yep, they got my money. So,
and I hope that they sell much more than that. It's always nice. Like Disgaea, the original Disgaea, I think sold 200 or 300,000 copies, and they considered that to be an absolute runaway success because it was significantly more than what they were expecting.
I love to walk into an EB and see all the used copies of Demon Souls. So people bought it, and then it kicked their ass, and then they couldn't play it anymore.
Well, I actually worked at retail when Demon Souls came out, and I was surprised at how many non-gamers, or not non-gamers, but non-RPG players would come in and buy Demon Souls.
Yeah, but I do think that game, unfortunately, had a high return rate. At least the EBs that I've been into, or GameStops, whatever you want to call them, I've always seen a lot of Demon Souls, and you can get it for like $15 now used. I mean, it's out there, people. Go buy it. Project Arc. Tell me more about Project Arc, please.
But yeah, so I guess that's all there really is for the news. If anyone's interested, we have links to various trailers and game announcements from the Image Epoch Nice America partnership on the site. They're also available around the internet if you can't find the news story. But I guess that about wraps it up.
Do we have anybody that's covering the big event next week? I want to see if anybody knows what I'm even talking about.
Which the VGAs?
No, like what's going to end up being the biggest release of the year. December 7th.
World of War.
Oh,
yeah, Cataclysm. One. Do we have anybody at the site that's interested?
I would be, but I kind of.
My account is no longer active.
I played 10 minutes of World of Warcraft and realized that it was literally liquid crack, and I avoided it.
I don't know. We can try and convince Salvato to cover it. I know he plays.
I just think it would be interesting. It is kind of the biggest RPG, MMO, whatever you want to call it. It is the big one. So, and just hearing all the things that they've talked about, me as a non-World of Warcraft player, I am interested, but I literally could not devote my life to that game. I can't. I can't play it. I know what will happen. I can't play it. Blizzard's already got, their date of death for me, which is whenever Diablo 3 comes out. So,
I mean, I guess one thing, I don't know if we talked about this last week, but the big World of Warcraft patch went live recently. Yeah, the one that kind of changed the entire world of Azeroth.
I remember when Deathwing was this tiny little MPEG. I remember that, World Warcraft 2 and seeing Deathwing and having him destroy towns and stuff, and now it's he's coming back. That's kind of interesting.
But yeah, so I mean, I guess these days it's only $5 for a standard a base level World of Warcraft account, but that gets you all of the new
$5 a month?
No, $5 for an account, and then you get your first month. The first hit is free. So, and then it's $15 a month after that, or, however you decide to do your, pricing, depending on, how much you pay and stuff. But, yeah, you get access. I mean, you're still stuck with only the, the first 4, or 8 races rather, and whatever classes. But, you get access to all of the new, main Azeroth content.
All of the retailers right now are selling it where you can buy, you can buy the first 2 expansions and the original game for $20.
Yeah. It's getting, as much as it is, a liquid crack, it is becoming a very good deal. I'm almost tempted to reactivate it.
What I think may happen eventually is 1 or 2 expansions down the road is they're going to have to adopt the EverQuest model, where a new boxed version of the game is going to include all of the previous expansions.
Mm. Yeah.
Probably. I just, I can't believe how big World of Warcraft has gotten. I remember seeing the first trailers for World of Warcraft. What was it with Warcraft 3? And I just remember being wow, this probably won't be that great. No one's really going to play it. People aren't really into MMOs. Everybody loves EverQuest. I've never been so wrong in my life. It is, God.
He admits it.
No, I was
wrong. He was wrong once.
I was completely wrong about World of Warcraft. I honestly didn't think people would be that into it. I didn't see the appeal of releasing another MMO when EverQuest was such a juggernaut back then. And just, wow. And I think that's a testament to Blizzard's quality. I mean, they do great work. Just release Diablo 3 now. Do it now. Do it now!
Do it live. All right, yeah. So that officially wraps it up for news. Rob, do you wanna take this one home?
Thanks everybody for listening. Again, keep an eye out on the boards. I know Bryan posted some questions that we didn't answer this week, but if you guys post questions, we can put that into our topic segment. If somebody gets a really good question rolling, then we can talk about it for a little bit. Be sure to go on iTunes, download our podcast from there, subscribe through iTunes, subscribe through the RSS feed on the show. Want to make sure that you guys are listening and enjoying. So for John, Bryan, and Zach, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see y'all next time. Objection!